Joining us now from Oklahoma, Republican Congressman Kevin Hern. Congressman, thanks for making time for us. I was reminded of the president's warning about families buying fewer dolls for their children when I looked at these numbers. It's very hard to convince Americans to endure transitory economic disruption in service of a bigger plan. That definitely did not work for Joe Biden and the Democrats on inflation. Tell me why you think this is different.
Well, thanks for having me. You know, you go all the way back 40 years ago when we saw Ronald Reagan trying to take over from an abysmal administration of Jimmy Carter. We're seeing that same thing now. It takes a little while to get everything put back to where it was. You know, we talk about the inflation when Fed chairman said it was transitory, as you just mentioned. You know, when the Democrats took over, inflation was 1.9%, unemployment down in the threes. And then we had this thing that came along that Joe Biden started spending money that we didn't have and things that we didn't need. And now the president, after 4 years and 77.3 million votes out there that said we want to make sure we change America, he's been in office 230 days today. He's had 201 executive orders. He is moving very quickly to try to put America back to where it was when he left. It's a lot of work. We need to help him get it done. But right now, America is probably seeing the most aggressive job creation economy that we've seen. But here's what we also know. When you talk to business people, as I do, I spent 35 years in business, and the president obviously has been in business his entire life. We need to see lower interest rates. People are waiting to see the Fed lower the interest rates. They've been sitting here now steady for a year. And when he lowered them before, there was really no economic data to say he should have lowered them other than politics. So we need to get on with lowering the interest rates so we can get this economy roaring.
Okay, so there is a similar narrative around immigration. We saw that big raid at the Hyundai plant in Georgia. It's part of a nationwide effort. You have big manufacturers in your district. You guys are out there making everything from school buses to big air conditioners. You and a lot of Republicans, I am sure, agree with the stepped up enforcements, and you may even say that the concerns about civil rights for the deportees are overblown. But what about the economic consequences for the communities and for consumers? This has to have upward pressure on prices, and it has to have disruptive effects on local economies, right?
Well, I think, Democrats and Republicans alike should agree on the fact that only Americans who are legal citizens should be working here unless they have a legal method to do so. If you're illegal, I don't care who the company is, you should not be here working. And the president has made this statement when he was running for office. And he's fulfilling the promises he made on the campaign trip. So I don't know why anybody's surprised. He has said this time and time again. Everybody should support that. Unfortunately, we have, these jobs are being taken by folks who are not here in the rightful way. And we should put those jobs, fill those jobs with American workers. And I think the president's going to do that. These businesses will do that. I got to tell you, Main Street America is applauding what the president is doing. It may not be what's happening inside the Beltway in Washington, D.C. that's exciting with my Democrat colleagues. But in America, I had some guys tell me yesterday, said, I feel safe again. I feel like we're on the right path. And that's here in Oklahoma. Okay.
From your perch on the Ways and Means Committee, you had a much more pleasant August than those poor folks over on appropriations. The next fight is looming over a potential government shutdown at the end of this month. So I want to start with the question of rescissions. Some Republicans, like Susan Collins, senator from Maine, have gone so far to say that the president's recent withholding of monies appropriated by Congress is illegal. You voted for the White House's initial request to claw back $9 billion, though you said it wasn't an easy choice. Where are you now? Are you concerned about this latest round of what we call pocket rescissions?
Well, certainly within the president's legal purview to do so, and I'm sure it will be challenged. It will go to the courts, as everything he did in the first 4 years, and certainly as he's done so far. But the president is, I would tell you, he's determined to get America back on the right track and get spending under control. You look at the tariff dollars coming in. I think it's like 187 billion so far. It's projected to be somewhere a couple trillion over the next decade. These things are all important. You also have to cut spending by having the permanent tax rates that we saw in the working family tax cuts. These are all really important issues to get America back and close these $2 trillion deficits that we're seeing and lower our borrowing dependency. And this is all part of it.
Okay, so on the question of these rescissions, right? So it does make life more complicated as you have to deal with Democrats, right? Because Republicans, whether it's just in the Senate, are definitely going to need some Democratic votes to prevent shutdown at the end of this month. How do you convince Democrats, come to the table, let's compromise, if at the same time Republicans also hold the position that the president can also cut spending or impound dollars? How does that complicate the negotiations?
Well, let's think about this. We have the White House obviously in Republican control. We have the House, both the Republican majority and Republican control. In the Senate, we have a Republican majority, but not necessarily control, because the Democrats have 7 votes that they can use to move things around. If the Democrats want the government to shut down, then all they have to do is vote against continue to have it open. And then they're going to have to answer to the American people why they did not support keeping the government open. This idea of rescissions, we're talking about $4 billion and a $5 trillion, or excuse me, a $7 trillion spend each year. $4 billion is not a lot of money, and I think the American people would say, why can't you find more? The issues that are being cut are things that right now are being moved out of USAID and moved back into the State Department under Secretary Rubio. And I got full confidence that we're going to address the waste, fraud, and abuse for the first time. There's an old joke, waste, fraud, and abuse must not exist because we've been looking for it for decades. Well, now we're finding it, and now we're addressing it, and now we're going to see how we can move this forward in the Congress.
Okay, Tom Cole, you know that guy. He's your fellow Oklahoman, and he is the powerful Appropriations Committee chairman, and he has been arguing for a very, very short-term stopgap spending bill to allow negotiations on a long-term deal to go on. So he's talking about like Thanksgiving at the latest. But the president's team reportedly wants a much longer punt, which probably ends up in a big, ugly omnibus spending package that opponents of pork barrel spending have always said was a big problem. How do you do this? Do you see you want to fight it out now and punt a little bit, or do you want to kick it into next year and do it then?
Well, I'll certainly leave those internal negotiations to the Speaker and to my dear friend Tom Cole and to the White House. But the reality is that we need to get the 12 appropriation bills done on time, something that the Congress, Democrat or Republican, has ever done in the last 25 years. That's a real problem. I would say that's the baseline issue with our huge deficits that we're having and the runaway debt that we have, is that we're not doing the people's work. Our primary job ought to be passing budgets, doing the appropriations, and getting those reconciled and getting the president to sign them by September 30th. I know what Tom Cole wants to do, the appropriations chair, my dear friend that I talk to almost every day. He wants to get the 12 appropriation bills done. I know we've been bogged down with a lot of negotiations on getting the big bill done, which I think will probably be one of the pieces of legislation that will go down as some of the most monumental things that's ever happened in Congress. But Tom Cole is working every single day to tell people about the history of the House. There's no one that's seen more happen in the House of Representatives in the federal government than Tom Cole.
Congressman, we thank you. All right, America, if you ever said stay gold, pony boy, while visiting the Outsiders House Museum in Tulsa, Oklahoma, you'd know him already. But if you don't, there he is, Congressman Kevin Hern. We thank you.